Hey, how's it going everybody? Geoff Shackley here, drum instructor with Freeway Music. And today I decided we'd do something a little bit different. We're not going to talk specifically about playing today, but we are going to talk about something that is extremely important that a lot of people tend to overlook. So today we are going to talk about how to actually set up your drum set. Now, I'll admit, my drum set was already fairly set up, so a couple of these things I've cheated. They're already set the way I want them. But we're going to talk about some basics as to how to approach putting your drum kit together so that it's the most comfortable it can possibly be for you to play. Okay? So, first things first, I watched a video one time where somebody discussed, it's like, take your sticks. Sit down without anything around you, close your eyes, and play drums. I know I don't really have anything in front of me, but that's the point. Sit down and try to play. Where are you hitting? When you have your eyes closed and you're just pretending, air drumming away, where is your rack tom? Where is your snare drum? Where are your crash cymbals? Where's your ride cymbal? Your floor tom? How's your hi-hat doing? Did I mention hi-hat? I'm notorious for repeating myself. But those are all things to consider. You know, where are the drums when you don't have any drums in front of you, when you don't have any preconceived notion as to where you're supposed to be hitting? Where do you hit? And with that idea in mind, you should approach setting up your drum set. So you don't have to look at somebody else's kit and go, well, they have their rack toms over here and floor toms over here. They have this tilted at this angle, or that's what they decided worked for them. That doesn't mean that's what you have to do. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. And this gets really dangerous when we get into hero worship. You know, I absolutely adore Dave Weckl. He's my favorite drummer in the whole wide world. I tried to set my drums up exactly the way he does, and as much as I liked it, it wasn't quite right. When I started doing some other tweaking and other things like that, I realized I like it a little bit different, and that's what works for me. Okay? So, now that we've talked about the visualizing concept of it, why don't we talk about where to start as far as actually putting that all together? So the first things first, you'll see I am sitting in a chair. Not just any chair, my delightful drum throne. And the first thing I'm going to want to do, I'm going to want to just sit down like I would normally sit in any chair anywhere. Like so, feet flat on the ground. I feel pretty comfortable, fairly decent posture. I guess you could slouch if you want, though it's not that great. Then I look down at the ground and I see, where are my feet? Well, if my feet are there, that means that ideally, that's about where I'd want my pedals to be. Okay? That's another one. Sometimes we have this weird preconceived notion of this is where the pedals are supposed to be, this is how this is supposed to look. Nope. Follow your body, follow your own natural ergonomics. So if I'm sitting here like this, that means bass drum pedal here, hi-hat over here. So here's my handy dandy bass drum pedal. I just kind of try to lay it over my foot a little bit, move my foot out of the way, and then drop to the ground. Boom! That's like exactly where I had it. And this feels pretty good. Okay? Now you do the same thing with the hi-hat. I grab the hi-hat here, I bring it over. Some hi-hat pedals, it's easier to do this than others. I try to lay it pretty much exactly over where my foot is. Get the foot out of the way, put it back, ta-da! It's pretty much golden. A little bit angled weird, there we go. So here's a great starting point. Here are my feet. Now, my feet are here. The next logical place to go would be the bass drum, because the bass drum just needs to hook into the pedal. So pardon me, this pedal can be a little bit finicky when attaching things. I usually, before I try to attach my bass drum, you'll see I'm going to put my foot down on here because the pedal weighs virtually nothing and the bass drum weighs a lot more than that. So sometimes when you're trying to connect it, you'll mess up your pedal and it won't be so drastically bad that it will feel horribly far off, but I just like to do that as a safety precaution to make sure that the pedal doesn't move from that good ergonomic spot. Now, one thing you might notice is that now here I am sitting here, I'm facing this way, my bass drum is facing this way. That's another one of those preconceived notions, is that you have to be facing directly forward and your bass drum has to be facing directly forward. That's what's aesthetically pleasing, that looks great, who cares? You don't need that. Now, you can do a couple of things to compensate for this, okay? You can start purposely angling yourself a little bit more over to one side so that your bass drum will be facing directly forward. I do agree that is fairly aesthetically pleasing to look at, especially if you've got a cool band logo on the front or anything like that, or if your drum logo is nice and big and loud and you want to make sure everybody knows, I play blank drums. In this case, I play Yamaha drums, personal favorite, but I have different heads on there that don't have the logo. You know, that all makes sense. But you yourself do not have to be facing directly straight forward. You can angle yourself. I usually find myself, I kind of face my snare drum and maybe a crash cymbal that's right here or another ride cymbal if I'm playing jazz with a multi-ride setup, something like that. So you do not have to be directly face forward. You can be angled a little bit, and that is A-okay. So, next step here, now like I said, here's where we start getting into some of the places where I have cheated. Okay, I already have my rack tom set up here. I have a floor tom that's already set up to the height that I like. I have my snare drum already set up to the height that I like. But here's where you can start to make some alterations. So let's say, what the heck? Next place I would go is the snare drum. So you have your feet set up. Snare drum will be the next thing that'll be right in front of you. Okay, so I'm going to grab my snare. Bring it back around and slide this sucker right on in there. Okay. Now when you're there, you can take a moment and try and play. For me, I realized that my snare drum is actually a little bit close to me. So I might want to adjust where my rack tom is a little bit. I like my snare drum to be a little bit further away from me, not crazy far away. But ta-da! Snare drum there. And just so you can see, let me take the rack tom off all the way real quick. Here's where we're at. And for me, I like my snare drum to be roughly about waist height, maybe just a little bit lower. That's easiest for me to play, okay? Some people like their snare drum super low. I know I just told you to follow your instinct and where you air drum, but in some cases, you know, I feel like when it's way down there, you'll punch yourself in the leg the whole time and your body gets in the way of itself. So I like to have it at a fairly waist level kind of height. That way my legs are out of my own way. I can get a nice solid hit into it. Doesn't have to be chest high. There's no need for that. So once I have this, the next thing I would grab is my floor tom. I like to bring that over here. And for me personally, I like my floor tom and my snare drum to be almost like directly across from each other. At least this first floor tom. You might have a multi-floor tom set up and then you've got to work that out for you. But I like to be able to go seamlessly back and forth. That's really easy. I don't have to do a lot of crazy movement. My arms are just going back and forth, and I can go from the center of this drum to the center of this drum. I don't have to do a lot of turning, twisting. Now, whatever. This isn't a dance from the 50s or 60s. This is drumming. Then I would go to my rack tom. In this case, I just got one. I'm using my bop kit today for this demonstration. But with my bigger kit, you may have seen, I have 2 to 3 rack toms all set up. So, you know, again, you've got to kind of find what works best for you in your particular setup. And again, I've got this cheated. I've already got this to the height that I know that I want it. So in this case, I just have to slide this guy back onto the post, have him where I want him, and ta-da! That's at a height that I like, that's at an angle that I like, that's at a positioning left to right that I like, and it makes it easy for me to move around the drums. Once you have that set up, my suggestion is before you add anything else is sit and play. Just play and make sure that this is what's really comfortable for you, okay? Because sometimes you might look at it and it might look right and it might feel kind of right, but then you start trying to do maybe more of your complicated fills or ideas, and you start trying to move around, try to apply some speed, and you realize, I'm just, like my stick keeps ramming into the rim here, or I missed this completely, or I'm playing over on the edge of this drum. I'm not playing directly in the center like I wanted to. So you might want to do a little bit of fine tuning and adjusting from this standpoint first, okay? Once you have that, here's where you can start adding in cymbals. Now, for this particular kit, again, right now I just have a ride cymbal. But normally I would have another ride cymbal here if for this jazz kit, or if I was playing more rocky tunes, I'd have a crash cymbal here and another crash cymbal over here, as well as my ride cymbal here. So again, just remember, when you're trying to set this up, sit down, close your eyes, and be like, well, you know, where do I want this? So when I close my eyes, the way I'm sitting, I feel like I want my ride cymbal right about here. This looks good. So let me see if I can position it there. And remember, you'll see with this, I've got my ride cymbal kind of angled, but that's how I like it, especially for this kind of music. Yours doesn't have to be angled, it can be flat. Loads of people like to play flat ride cymbals way down here. If that's what you like, that's what you like. If that's what your body wants to do, that's what it wants to do. So in this case, I have this angle, but remember, you can play with that a little bit. What if one day you're playing over here and you realize, well, that's what I thought I liked, but this doesn't feel all that great the more I get into it. Try putting it higher and putting an angle on it. Adjust your heights, adjust your angles, see what works best. Okay, so let's see. It's almost there. Bring it a little closer. That feels good. So now I've got my drum set up here in front of me. It all feels pretty ergonomic. I like where this is. This works best for me. So, just remember, start off air drumming. Where do you want to feel these different surfaces? Where do you want your snare? Where do you want your hi-hat? Where do you want your rack toms? Where do you want your floor toms, your crash cymbals, your ride cymbal? Where does your body think that belongs when you don't have any drums in front of you? okay? Then start with the absolute basics. Sit your butt down in your chair and sit like you would just sitting at the kitchen table, sitting in your desk at school, hanging out on the couch watching TV, assuming that you sit at the couch with proper posture and not lounged around. Put your pedals where your feet were. Bring your, go ahead and attach your bass drum, because that's going to have to be right there. That's where your pedal was. If that's where your pedal is and that's where it's comfortable, the bass drum can't really be anywhere else. So go ahead and put that in there. Grab your snare drum, make sure your snare drum is set the way you like it. Bring your floor tom in. I think that's the next most important piece, so bring those in, get those where you want it, the ones that stand on the ground. And then you can start bringing in your rack toms and feel, where exactly do I want those? What heights, what angles, what feels best, and then you can bring everything else up on top. So you're building your drum set together from the ground up until you get where you want to be. So there is your tip for today. Again, I hope this brings you a lot of ease and comfort in your future setups. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. Just remember, until next time, be safe, have fun, practice with a metronome, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys.